On Sunday, October 19th, 2025, 4 thieves broke into the world's largest and most famous museum in broad daylight and stole some of France's most valuable treasures. Not only did they pull off the biggest museum heist in France's history, they made it look easy. But just because the operation was a success, it doesn't mean the thieves didn't make mistakes. Mistakes that have allowed investigators to catch several of them. The day of the heist dawned cool and crisp over Paris as tourists gathered beneath the Louvre's iconic glass pyramid, waiting for its 9 a.m. opening. The world's most visited museum, home to 35,000 works of art spanning 73,000 square meters, was preparing for another busy day with an expected 30,000 visitors. But just outside, on a street along the Seine's south side, something unusual was happening that nobody was noticing. A truck mounted with a Mont Mobile, a mechanized basket lift used to hoist furniture through apartment windows, parked near the building's southeast corner. 4 men in bright yellow construction vests climbed out, their faces hidden under balaclavas. They placed orange safety cones on the street, creating the illusion of routine maintenance work. But these weren't maintenance workers. In fact, this wasn't even their truck. It had been stolen 9 days earlier on October 10th when its owner, a professional mover, responded to a moving job posted on a French classified site similar to Craigslist. At 9:30 a.m., exactly 30 minutes after the museum had opened its doors to crowds of hundreds, 2 of the men climbed into the Mont Mobile's basket and were lifted towards the upper floors. Passerbys barely glanced at them. In Paris, as in many European cities, centuries-old buildings require constant maintenance and renovation, which means locals often ignore construction workers on lifts. Exactly what these men were counting on. But one person did notice. A cyclist passing by saw helmeted men with a basket lift positioned oddly against the museum and dialed the emergency line. That cyclist's call was the first alert to police. The basket stopped at the level 1 balcony of the Galerie des Polons, a sumptuous hall rebuilt by Louis XIV in the 1600s after a fire. The 2 men pulled out an angle grinder, a handheld disc cutter, and began slicing vertically through the window's glass panes. Tour guide Ryan Elmandari was leading a group through the museum when he heard a strange stomping sound echoing through the Galerie des Polons. "I was just trying to figure out what's happening when I saw the museum staff going to that noise. Then they did a turnaround, like real quick, and they started running and saying, 'Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out! Evacuate!' Within minutes, chaos erupted as confused tourists fled the Louvre, many believing it was a terrorist attack or fire. In actuality, they were in the middle of France's most audacious heist in decades." The alarm triggered immediately. Inside the gallery, 3 security guards heard what was described as something very violent, a very violent commotion of noise. At first, they didn't know what it was, believing it was a visitor causing a scene. But they soon realized, almost all at once, what they were hearing. The screeching of glass being cut. A robbery. Security protocols kicked in, with employees rushing to evacuate and protect visitors from potential terrorists. But the thieves were already inside. The 2 masked men stormed through the opulent gallery, brandishing their power tools like weapons, threatening the stunned security personnel. One journalist saw the CCTV footage himself, recalling the scene as it unfolded. Using their angle grinders, they cut into 2 glass display cases containing artifacts of incalculable value. But the glass protecting the jewelry was solid. The angle grinder was not strong enough to fully cut through, forcing them to shoulder barge the displays and elbow the glass until, finally, they made holes in the displays. 2 security guards approached the thieves, attempting to intervene, but quickly backed away out of fear that the intruders might be armed. The thieves seized 9 pieces, stuffing them into bags before diving out of the window and descending back to the street, where 2 accomplices waited outside on motor scooters. As they exited the Mont Mobile, the thieves attempted to set fire to its basket and destroy evidence. But before it could ignite, the near simultaneous arrival of museum security and police forced them to flee. The 2 thieves jumped on the back of the scooters and roared away along the Seine's banks, but whether they knew it or not, they had left something critical behind at the crime scene. The entire operation had only taken 7 minutes from arrival to escape, with 4 spent inside. As confused tourists were herded outside, many panicked, fearing terrorism or fire. Luis, a tourist from Mexico, told reporters, "You can't imagine it. You see it in the movies. It was very well thought out. And this is something that happened in minutes." Kathy from Florida said, "I'm really disappointed. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to come see it, and now I'm not going to get to see it because the robbery is a once-in-a-lifetime too. By afternoon, the reactions from French officials ranged from outrage to devastation. Interior Minister Laurent Nunez described the stolen artifacts as priceless and of immeasurable heritage value, calling it a major, highly organized operation by a team that had clearly done reconnaissance. President Emmanuel Macron condemned the event in stark terms. The theft committed at the Louvre is an attack on a heritage that we cherish because it is our history. We will recover the works, and the perpetrators will be brought to justice. But the most damning statement came from Justice Minister Gérald Darmanin. People were able to park a furniture hoist in the middle of Paris, get people up it in several minutes to grab priceless jewels and give France a terrible image. We have failed. By evening, one question consumed France. How could this happen? Were the thieves really that good? Or was the Louvre just that easy to steal from? The Louvre's relationship with theft is almost as old as the museum itself. In the 12th century, the Louvre was built as a medieval fortress, later transformed into a royal palace, and eventually converted into a public museum after the French Revolution in 1793. Its vast wings and countless rooms have made it notoriously difficult to secure, vulnerabilities that thieves have exploited for over a century. The first and most notorious theft occurred on August 21, 1911. Vincenzo Peruggia was a former Louvre employee, an Italian glazier who had helped install protective glass over Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. He believed that the Mona Lisa belonged to Italy, that Napoleon had stolen it. To make this right, he and his accomplices walked out of the museum with the painting hidden under his work smock. In reality, Leonardo himself had brought the painting to France. But for 2 years, Peruggia kept the Mona Lisa hidden in his Paris apartment before attempting to sell it to an Italian art dealer. His arrest in 1913 inadvertently transformed the painting into the icon it is today. Before the theft, it hadn't even been the most famous painting in its gallery. For decades, Peruggia's theft was the Louvre's most shocking heist, the impact of which led to gradual changes to Louvre security, including more protective glass cases and enhanced physical barriers around high-value artworks. But it wasn't enough. In 1998, the Louvre's security came into question again when an unknown thief walked into the museum, removed the pegs from behind the frame holding Camille Corot's painting Le Chemin de Sévère, sliced the painting right out of the frame, and then simply walked out of the museum undetected, all while hundreds of visitors milled about in nearby galleries. That painting, valued at $1.3 million, has never been recovered. Pierre Rosenberg, the Louvre's director at the time, warned that the museum's security was fragile. The theft prompted some upgrades, but apparently not enough. When Laurence Descartes became Louvre director in 2021, she immediately requested a security audit from the Paris police. The resulting report was damning. Outdated equipment, insufficient CCTV coverage, and glaring vulnerabilities throughout the sprawling complex. Recommendations were made to fortify the museum's security, but according to Culture Minister Rachida Dati, they were only beginning to be implemented at the time of the 2025 robbery, nearly 4 years later. Part of the problem with these continued thefts lies in the Louvre's architecture. The building was designed as a fortress and palace, not a modern museum. Its centuries-old structure can't easily accommodate state-of-the-art security technology. Even something as simple as installing new camera systems presents enormous practical and logistical challenges. But labor unions had been sounding alarms for years about more than just architecture. They saw issues in understaffing and resource cuts. Over the 15 years preceding the 2025 heist, approximately 200 full-time security positions had been eliminated from a workforce of nearly 2,000, even as visitor numbers soared to record levels. The SUD union issued a scathing statement the day of the heist, denouncing, quote, the destruction of jobs dedicated to security at the Louvre. Security worker Elise Muller, who patrols rooms inside the museum, told reporters afterward, "We have raised the alarm through our union, and our colleagues have all repeatedly warned about the difficulties we face every day at work. We inevitably reached the limit of what we could do to secure the building and its collections." In June 2025, just 4 months before the heist, Louvre employees had gone on strike to protest untenable working conditions, chronic understaffing, and overcrowding. They complained of too few eyes on too many rooms. Their warnings went unheeded. A leaked security audit obtained by Le Figaro newspaper revealed that 35% of rooms in the Denon wing, where the Galerie des Palons is located, had no security cameras at all. The cameras that did exist were aging, and many weren't positioned to cover critical areas. The camera closest to where the thieves entered was facing west and completely missed the balcony they used to breach the window. Paris Police Chief Patrice Faure acknowledged to senators that aging, partly analog cameras and slow fixes had left seams in security. He revealed that $93 million worth of CCTV cabling work will not be completed before 2029 or 2030. And even worse, the Louvre's camera authorization, the paperwork that ensures the museum can legally run its security cameras, had lapsed in July and failed to be renewed months before the heist. Louvre director Decars later testified to the French Senate that the museum had failed to identify the thieves' arrival in time. She also revealed that she had offered her resignation to Culture Minister Dadi, who refused it. Adding to the security nightmare was the ongoing renovation work at the Louvre. In January 2025, President Macron announced a massive renovation and expansion project costing up to $930 million, designed to modernize facilities and handle increasing visitor numbers. But the construction meant scaffolding, barriers, and workers moving in and out constantly, making it nearly impossible to differentiate legitimate workers from the intruders disguised in high-vis construction vests. Former bank robber David Desclose, speaking to the Associated Press, described the heist as textbook, but he also told reporters that he knew it was going to happen because he had warned the Louvre of the many glaring vulnerabilities in the layout of the Galerie de Pologne. The thieves had exploited every one of these weaknesses: aging cameras, blind spots, understaffing, the chaos of renovation, and the cultural invisibility of construction workers in Paris. And now, the cost of these blaring oversights is incalculable.
Oh, ouch.
Oh, hey Grill, what's up?
I just received a workplace injury due to negligence of another party. Ouch.
Well, you could always contact...
Does this sound familiar to you? Well, if so, I might have a solution for you. Hi, I'm Grill Burns. Have you ever heard of the Bill of Wrongs? Yeah, me neither. You know what I have heard of? The Bill of Rights. And so have our sponsors, Morgan & Morgan, because they defend your rights if you've been wronged. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys and more than 100 offices nationwide. You can check out how much a client in Florida got. The insurance offered $350,000, but Morgan & Morgan got them a whopping $12 mil. Another client was offered $0. You kidding me? Well, then Morgan & Morgan comes in and gets them $20 million. They've been fighting for people for over 35 years. Ready to battle it out if you end up working with them. Wiccaw! So listen up, if you get injured because of someone else's negligence, you deserve to get paid. And guess what? Their fee is free unless you win. You can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan by clicking the link below in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen. You can just fill in a bit of info and click start your claim. Easy peasy, come on. Because you know what I always say? If you want a fortune of massive proportion, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming, where it sounds like our burglars over here might need to get their own legal team pretty soon. Cause, well, you'll see.
The items stolen from the gallery are among France's most treasured historical artifacts, each piece telling the story of a nation's imperial grandeur. The French Ministry of Culture identified all of the missing jewels. The sapphire set of Queen Marie Amélie and Queen Hortense, a tiara featuring 24 Ceylon sapphires and 1,083 diamonds, a matching necklace, and a single earring. These pieces, combining brilliance and historical significance, dated back to the early 19th century and had adorned French royalty for generations. The emerald set of Empress Marie-Louise, an emerald necklace originally gifted by Napoleon Bonaparte to his second wife, along with a pair of emerald earrings. Marie-Louise, an Austrian archduchess who became Empress of the French in 1810, wore these jewels at ceremonies and diplomatic meetings with foreign dignitaries. The treasures of Empress Eugénie, a tiara once belonging to Eugénie de Montijo, wife of Napoleon III, adorned with nearly 2,000 diamonds, a reliquary brooch, and a large corsage bow brooch. These mid-19th century pieces represented the height of Second Empire opulence. The item the thieves accidentally dropped during their escape, a crown, also belonged to Empress Eugénie. Created for the 1855 Universal Exposition in Paris, it featured 1,354 diamonds and 56 emeralds. Authorities recovered it damaged, though the full extent of the damage hasn't been disclosed as of the time of this video. To make matters even more painful for the French government, all of the priceless stolen goods were uninsured. In fact, French law prohibits museums from insuring their property unless they are moved or loaned to other institutions. Otherwise, every piece of art within is an uninsured property belonging to the state. Paris public prosecutor Laure Becot estimated the economic value of the stolen jewels at £88 million, approximately $102 million US. But she was quick to emphasize that the number pales in comparison to the historical damage. But while the thieves had collected some high-value items, they had skipped the gallery's most valuable single item, the 140-carat Regent diamond, one of the world's most famous diamonds, valued at over $60 million. The thieves left it untouched. Why remains a mystery. Was it too well guarded, or did they simply run out of time? We may never know. Now comes the grim question. What will become of the stolen crown jewels? There are essentially three main possibilities. 1. Dismantle and sell the materials. The thieves break the pieces apart, melt down the gold and silver, and recut the diamonds to remove any identifying characteristics. This is the most likely scenario, given that the tiara's rare natural pearls alone held significant value. Tobias Cormant, managing director of 77 Diamonds, estimated that once dismantled, the materials could fetch around $13.4 million US, roughly 13% of their intact value. In his words, the diamond and gemstone market is fluid, and there are numerous buyers on the fringes who don't ask many questions. 2. Negotiate with the French government or the Louvre for a ransom. Former jewel thief Larry Lawton, who spent over 11 years in federal prison for robbing jewelry stores along the East Coast in the 1980s and 90s, has become one of the most vocal experts analyzing the heist. He told CBS News that if he were the one masterminding the heist, he would keep at least one piece of the loot as a bargaining chip, giving them the option to negotiate with the French government or the Louvre for a substantial payout in exchange for the undamaged artifacts. 3. The Hollywood scenario. The thieves sell the stolen items to a shadowy billionaire who wants to privately own the crown jewels. Most experts dismiss this as fantasy upon hearing it. No one wants to handle something so hot, Dutch art detective Arthur Brand explained. You can't showcase it to friends, pass it down to your children, or sell it. Arthur Brand was also blunt about the timeline the police were working with. They have a week. If they catch the thieves, the stuff might still be there. If it takes longer, the loot is probably gone and dismantled. It's a race against time. Though former jewel thief Larry Lawton has pointed out some critical mistakes the thieves made that could aid the investigation, errors suggesting they weren't as professional as the operation initially appeared to be. They left behind crucial evidence at the scene: 2 angle grinders, a blowtorch, gasoline, a helmet, gloves, a walkie-talkie, a blanket, and the Empress Eugenie's crown, all potentially containing DNA evidence. But Lawton also believes that this was likely an inside job. Let me tell you, they had an inside person, he told the New York Times. An inside person doesn't mean they even know him. Could it be a girlfriend who's a tour guide and she knows, where it is? In multiple interviews, Lawton emphasized that successful heists of this magnitude require meticulous planning, reconnaissance, and inside intelligence about security blind spots, staff schedules, and alarm systems, all of which only an inside person could know. The investigation marshaled significant resources. Prosecutor Becco called it an exceptional mobilization, comprising around 100 investigators working 7 days a week with roughly 150 forensic samples analyzed and 189 items sealed as evidence. Multiple elite units were assigned to the case, including the Banditry Repression Brigade, BRB, a specialized unit within the Paris police dedicated to tracking organized crime rings, the Central Office for the Fight Against Cultural Goods Trafficking, OCBC, France's art crime specialists, the CGI Group, an Israeli security firm with a sterling reputation for solving high-profile art thefts. They gained international fame in the early 2020s for helping solve the 2019 Dresden Green Vault heist, where jewelry worth over $120 million was stolen from a German museum. That case had some interesting parallels to the Louvre heist. On November 25, 2019, members of the notorious Rimo crime family, a Berlin-based criminal organization, finally executed the heist they had been planning for months. After visiting the site multiple times, they identified their entry point, used a hydraulic cutting machine to saw through protective iron bars covering a window, then carefully reattached them to avoid detection. On the night of the heist, they set fire to a circuit breaker panel near the museum, plunging the surrounding streets into darkness while disabling the building's security alarms. 2 thieves wearing masks and wielding axes smashed through reinforced glass display cases, seizing 113 million pounds worth of diamond-studded artifacts before escaping. They dumped and burned their getaway car in an underground parking lot. The whole operation took only 13 minutes. But what the thieves didn't realize was that despite the power outage, the CCTV cameras continued to function. That footage, coupled with DNA evidence at the scene and exhaustive police work, led to a breakthrough. In November 2020, almost a year after the heist, police raided 18 properties in Berlin and arrested 6 members of the Remo clan. Armed with the DNA from the crime scene, they traced their suspect to previous art crimes as well. In 2022, one of the defendant's lawyers negotiated a deal: partial confessions in exchange for lighter sentences and the return of some stolen items. 31 pieces were recovered, though many items were damaged. Some were never found and are believed to have been melted down. Both this German heist and the 2025 Louvre heist involve power tools to breach security barriers, both targeted jewelry that could be dismantled for material value, and both, as it turns out, left behind crucial evidence. The key turning point came much faster than the Dresden case. On Sunday, October 26th, exactly 1 week after the Louvre heist, French police made their first breakthrough. 2 suspects, both French nationals in their 30s from the Saint-Saint-Denis suburb of Paris, were arrested. Investigators had matched trace DNA recovered from a helmet left at the crime scene to a suspect already known to police for prior jewelry theft cases. With credible evidence, they placed him under phone and physical surveillance, which led them to their likely suspects. One suspect was detained at Paris's Charles de Gaulle airport around 10 p.m. as he attempted to board a flight to Algeria. The second was captured shortly afterward in northern Paris as he prepared to flee to Mali. Both men held dual citizenship, one French-Algerian, the other French-Malian. Axel Rond, a representative for a French police union, made a statement on French TV news. Thanks to the work of the forensic police, we were able to find DNA and find these individuals who were recorded in our national police databases. In total, investigators collected more than 150 DNA and fingerprint samples from the crime scene. Paris prosecutor Laure Bacot confirmed the arrests but expressed frustration that the information had leaked to the media. This revelation can only hinder the investigative efforts of the 100 or so mobilized investigators, both in the search for the stolen jewelry and for all the perpetrators. But that was just the beginning. On October 30th, 5 more people were arrested in late-night operations across Paris and nearby Saint-Saint-Denis, bringing the total to 7. Authorities quickly announced that 3 of the 4 alleged members of the commando team, as French media have named them, are now in police custody. As of this video, the final member remains at large. 2 of the suspects were charged on October 29th with theft and criminal conspiracy after almost 96 hours in custody. Both of them were said to have given minimalist statements and to have partially admitted their involvement. Another 2 suspects were charged with organized robbery and conspiracy to commit organized robbery on October 31st. However, the latest arrests have still not led to the recovery of the stolen antiques. With every passing day, it becomes more likely that the jewels have already been moved abroad or dismantled. From experience, I'm worried about the jewels, Interior Minister Nunes said before the arrests. Thieves always end up being found. It seems to be a case of organized crime. We'll see. But unfortunately, the loot is often hidden abroad. Investigators have also looked at similar French museum heists for patterns. The November 2024 Hayhay Museum heist saw armed robbers using chainsaws to breach armored glass. They escape with gold and ivory figurines. The September 2025 Natural History Museum heist saw thieves using an angle grinder and blowtorch to steal gold samples worth £600,000. The use of similar tools and the close dates suggested possible connections to the Louvre heist. There seems to be a pattern. Organized gangs systematically targeting French museums, using power tools to circumvent security measures, and focusing on items of high material value rather than artistic or cultural value. The Louvre heist seems to be the culmination of this trend, the biggest target and boldest successful operation to date. But if investigators uncover who was behind it, they may also solve the country's other recent museum heists in the process. As for the Louvre security measures, Cultural Minister Rachida Dati announced that security enhancements were being implemented across French museums. However, the timing of her announcement caused confusion and controversy. In January 2025, 9 months before the jewel heist, President Macron first announced the £160 million security enhancement project as part of his Louvre New Renaissance renovation project. but as of the previous 2021 security audit recommendations were only beginning to be implemented at the time of the robbery. Questions arose about whether these new promised investments had actually been implemented or if they were mainly on paper. Many of the improvements aren't expected to be finished until 2031. Dottie faced questions in a question-and-answer session in Parliament days after the heist, and vehemently defended the security response, telling lawmakers, "Have the Louvre's security precautions failed? No, they have not failed. That is a fact. The security measures worked." She argued that the alarms were triggered appropriately and the security protocols were followed after the heist began. However, critics like Paris's mayor Ariel Weil questioned how security could be considered successful when thieves escaped with over $100 million in jewels in just 7 minutes. Louvre director Decars didn't double down like Dottie. During her Senate testimony, she acknowledged that the museum's external video surveillance was highly insufficient and that the thieves should have been detected sooner. She also says new generation cameras and additional security personnel are now being installed throughout the Louvre. But all of these plans for enhanced security came too late for France's crown jewels. As Elaine Chelino, author of The Only Streets in Paris, told BBC Radio, "This attack really is a dagger into the heart of France and French history. An attack in this extraordinary space. It truly goes to the heart of what is the identity of the country." 3 days after the heist, the Louvre reopened to long lines of visitors, but the Galerie des Apollons remains sealed behind temporary partitions. As of the time of recording, 3 of the 7 suspects in custody have been released, with the remaining 4 charged. At least 1 member of the 4-person commando team remains at large. Despite the arrests and the mobilization of the investigation teams, 8 stolen pieces remain missing, and, if experts are correct, may have already been dismantled in an unknown location. On November 2nd, Paris prosecutor Laure Becot told French media that the culprits were most likely not professional thieves, but amateur small-time criminals from the suburbs. The 2025 Louvre heist represents an evolution in museum theft. For most of history, art thieves have targeted paintings, iconic works that could, in theory, be ransomed or sold to morally indifferent collectors, but never deliberately ruined. Modern organized crime has recognized a more profitable strategy: stealing jewelry and precious metals that can be broken down and sold for their materials, erasing their heritage value in exchange for untraceable cash. When the Mona Lisa was stolen in 1911, at least it remained intact in Perugia's apartment, able to be recovered and returned. But when crown jewels are stolen for their materials, recovery becomes nearly impossible. Historical identity is erased forever. A former leader of the London Police Force's art squad described it as commodity theft rather than traditional art crime. Modern thieves don't seem to care for art, and they're not even gentlemen thieves in the Thomas Crown mold. They're just cold-eyed opportunists who only see diamonds and gold. This leaves museums worldwide vulnerable. Christopher Marinello, a well-regarded expert in recovering stolen works of art, warned, "If they can hit the Louvre successfully, they can hit anything." The thieves may yet face justice. The Dresden case proves that forensic evidence and patient detective work can crack even the most sophisticated heists. But whether the jewels can ever be saved remains unknown. The almighty YouTube algorithm is very unforgiving, and the only way we can afford to keep making videos is because our awesome viewers tell the algorithm that our video is worth watching. You can do this by hitting the like button, subscribing to our channel, and sharing this video with a friend or loved one who you think might find this topic interesting. Also, check out one of our other videos, like this one, where we investigate the terrifying found footage of a man lost deep underground in the Paris catacombs.